Passing the buck on inflation, Secretary Yellen issuing a mea culpa.
I was wrong then about the path that inflation would take. As I mentioned, there...
9 out of 10 of Americans, out of a minimum, say inflation is the biggest concern, and they don't like the way the Biden administration is handling it.
You said it. Let's...
If we make these investments now, with interest rates at historic lows, we'll generate more growth, higher incomes, a stronger economy.
I really do not expect that we'll be in a situation where inflation rises to troubling levels.
Is there a risk of inflation? I think there's a small risk, and I think it's manageable.
What a difference a year makes. Americans are feeling the crush of historic inflation after the president and his team repeatedly insisted it would not be a problem. And it certainly is. Let's bring in Fox Business anchors in this country misjudge the inflation threat. And this massive inflation caught Washington by surprise. It goes date by date how that was done in Washington.
Well, and you talked to Gene Sperling yesterday. All of the administrators, they don't really have answers. First, they come out a year ago. We all remember those barbecues that were supposed to cost less than they did the year before to try to convince Americans that there was no inflation. Well, we all found out that just wasn't true, and it wasn't passing the muster, even with the Washington Post. The Washington Post is becoming the fall woman for the situation. The administration won't take responsibility for inflation. Its role in inflation, one, in terms of spending money that they don't have, and they just are coming out with this new student, and it causes inflation. I mean, it's the administration. It's not the Fed. The Fed has a role to play, but the primary role is spending trillions and trillions of dollars that they don't have, that the Fed then has to monetize by printing money.
Just two things on this. There was clearly a strategy to get this all out. Joe Biden had that editorial in the Wall Street Journal yesterday. Janet Yellen agrees to go on CNN and says this, right? Wolf Blitzer.
I was wrong then about the path that inflation would take. As I mentioned, there have been unanticipated and large shocks to the economy that I at the time didn't fully understand.
Listen, $2 trillion that was pumped in the early part of this administration.
Right. To AMH down in D.C. Anne-Marie, credit to Secretary Yellen stepping up, standing there and saying, I was wrong.
Yeah, a lot of people got it wrong, right? Including the Fed chair, Jay Powell, who the president has now said it is fully his responsibility to fix. To be temporary, and instead of owning it the way Janet Yellen did, really deflected and also pointed a lot of attention to how uncertain this was coming out of a pandemic, but also the fact that this is a global problem. Look at Europe. They're dealing with north of 8% inflation as well.